You're watching Primetime. I'm Tamanna Inamdar, and we have a lot for you coming up ahead. Let's also tell you that we have more updates from the India Mobile Congress today, where Ayush is. Ayush, what do you have for us today?
Well, last week on this particular show, we got you the Geo phone and we unboxed it for you live. This week, I'm at day 2 of the India Mobile Congress, and it's a special day. Amidst all these swanky devices and all the big stalls by Qualcomm, Huawei, Google and Facebook, there's one very special thing, and this is something that all of us in India, in every village, in every town, in every city, have been waiting for with bated breath. You know what it looks like? It's so tiny. Some of the coolest things come in the smallest packages. It's this Geo cable. And if you've been wondering how that Geo phone's going to connect to a TV, well, it's on today's show.
Yeah, we'll get you that a little later, but first, the top stories of the day. Government sticks to planned borrowing target in second half of the fiscal year, but asks PSUs to increase capex to boost growth. It's 8th day lucky for the Indian markets. Late buying helps Nifty end its longest losing streak of the year. Banking and financial stocks rise. The home loan battle intensifies. ICICI Bank launches a new scheme that offers borrowers the benefit of 1% cash back on every EMI. And Lupin is looking to buy its way out of the growth slump. CFO Ramesh Swaminathan says the company has a $1 billion M&A war chest, may look at acquisitions in the women's health pediatrics segments. Government may increase domestic natural gas prices for the first time in nearly 3 years, according to a Bloomberg survey. And senior BJP leader and former finance minister Yashwant Sinha sticks to his stance on the economy, even as his son and union minister Jayant Sinha comes to the government's defense. Well, straight to the top story. A government has announced its borrowings program for the second half of FY18. And here is the big headline from the announcement. The government has stuck to its budget plan, even as it calls for fiscal stimulus. And those calls get louder amidst a slowdown in the economy. Economic Affairs Secretary Subhash Garg said that the government will sell bonds worth 2.08 trillion rupees in 6 months, beginning from the 1st of October. The bulk of the bonds will be sold in the initial 3 months, that is before January. In the first half of the financial year to March 2018, India had a borrowing target of 3.72 trillion rupees, while for the whole year, Garg said the gross borrowings are budgeted at around 5.8 trillion rupees. This comes at a time when speculation has been rife about a stimulus package to aid economic recovery. And Economic Affairs Secretary Subhash Garg says that the government sees no need for any additional borrowing this fiscal, but any reassessment, if needed, will be done in December.
Major part of that borrowing program in the next 3 months and early January, and leave a smaller part to be funded or to be raised in the month of January, February and March. At this moment, we are going as per our program, but we have to be conscious that there may be a possibility, and if that is the possibility, then we will plan for the additional program.
Well, Ira Dugal of Bloomberg Quint now joins us for a perspective on what this announcement means. Ira, does this give an indication that the much speculated stimulus package is now out of the government's plans?
I would say not. So I think there was some fear that there would be an increase in the second half borrowing when the borrowing calendar was announced. But that fear was slightly unfounded, because even in the past, if the government has felt the need to increase borrowing, it typically happens in the last quarter. So, you will hear about it probably in December or January. But still, it does come as a relief to the markets. At least the bond markets were very worried that the government is slipping on its fiscal numbers. So far, you don't have a confirmation that that is true. There is still the possibility that that will happen. But both the finance minister and Mr. Garg, who spoke today, seem to be striking a very fine balance. They're saying so far we don't need additional borrowing, or we don't think we need additional borrowing. So far, we intend to stick to the 3.2% fiscal deficit target. But I think they're also shying away from making very strong and emphatic statements, because they know that the extent of control that they have over their finances this year is limited. We've been speaking and discussing the GSP uncertainty. That, of course, remains. Plus, of course, there have been other factors which have led to slightly slower growth in the government's revenues, including the fact that the Reserve Bank of India gave a lower dividend, and spectrum auction payments have also been lower than expected. So I don't think the market will entirely rule out additional borrowings in the January to March quarter, but for now this will come as a relief. Perhaps you could see some small reaction on the bond markets tomorrow.
All right, thanks for that, Ira. And now let's cut across to the finance minister, who's speaking at a book launch, in fact, in New Delhi, but is also defending the Modi government's economic policies.
Be happy to remain a distant memory for the people of India. However, since he seems determined to remain relevant in his party, I am obliged to recall his record during his 4 years as finance minister. I may point out that in 2000, 2001, and 2002, 2003 were the worst years since liberalization in terms of growth, and Prime Minister Vajpayee had then to force him out and replace him. Well, I'm glad they didn't have Mr. Advani to advise them. But then acting in tandem itself won't change the facts. Probably a more appropriate title for your book would have been India at 70, Modi at 3.5, and a job applicant at 80. Thank you.
Wow. So, Finance Minister Arun Jaitly there was speaking at the event of a book launch and ended with a remark saying that that book launch, perhaps should have been titled India at 70, Modi at 3.5, Modi government at 3.5 and job applicant at 80. He made it pretty clear that he was talking about Yashwant Sinha. Remember, the former finance minister and BJP senior leader has been very vocal with his criticism of the government's handling of the economy, and in an opinion piece he wrote in a leading newspaper, he made it very clear that a lot of his criticism was directed specifically at the finance minister. We're going to get you more on that story ahead on Primetime, so stay tuned. But meanwhile, let's talk a bit about the markets. 8th day lucky. Indian markets ended their longest losing streak of this year today, aided by a surge in banking and financial sectors. Both Nifty and Sensex clocked gains over 0.3%. Broader markets outperformed the benchmark indices, with both small cap and mid cap indices gaining close to 1%. Neeraj Shah breaks down the day's market action in this report.
57% of the respondents believe that the maximum downside for the index is about 200 points. A few people in favor of even less than 100 points as well. I don't know if this brings in the trading angle out here, but when we asked about what the view is over the course of the next 3 to 6 odd months, 57% of the respondents believe that the downside to the index could be about 200 points or less than that. Over 500 points, that's about a third of our respondents. However, a bit of a minority. Where is the downside seen? Whether it's 100 points, 200 points, or 500 points, or over 500 points, whatever the downside percentages may be. But when quizzed about what are the spaces wherein the downside could be seen at, I think there is an overwhelming majority which is betting on banking and NBFCs, and a bunch of people talking about defensives as well. The interesting bit is, we've been talking about this, that consumption remains the driving force of the market on the upside. Some of these consumption-related stocks are overvalued, but nobody believes that this is a bucket that will correct. So I believe the mood out there is that if there is anything that can pull the market up, it is the consumption space. Therefore, don't bet on that on the downside. For the downsides, look at banks and NBFCs. They are probably overvalued, so go out for them. And look out for defensives as well. They haven't, in a manner of speaking, corrected too much. Maybe they could correct now. So that's the third response. And last but not the least, how long before the recovery? This is an interesting one. Nobody believed that it'll be over 6 months. So for people who might be predicting doomsday and thinking that now until the next 1 year, we'll probably not see any signs of recovery, that theory is out. Majority of the respondents believe that we will recover. Whatever levels we go down to and whatever those individual levels may be, but we will recover. in less than 3 to 4 months. About a third of a percent, or slightly less than a third of a percent, maybe a quarter of a percent of the respondents believed that it'll probably take about 6 months, slightly less than 6 months or around 6 months for the recovery to come in. So some people pegging March to be the case, some people pegging December or January to be the case. So that's the timeline with which people are working with. Almost no one believed that there will be a recovery that will happen immediately. So even the 100-point respondent who mentioned that there could be a recovery in less than 100 points downside being seen, even they believe that the time taken to recover would be at least 3 months, maybe even 6 months.
All right, the rupee recovered from its fresh 6-month low and closed stronger against the US dollar today after markets gained. The rupee closed at 65.51 against the dollar, up 0.31% from its Wednesday's close of 65.71. In the morning trade, the home currency opened at 65.79 and touched a low of 65.89, a level last seen on 14th March. And Arvind Narayanan of DBS India says the rupee will weaken more going forward and there would be a lot of selling seen till 66.25 levels.
If you really look at this point of time, with PMAY less than 30 lakhs, you have got great subvention coming from government. You take our 1% cashback EMI schemes, which gives you for a 30-year loan, it gives you 10% of principal back to your pocket. If you take the other two schemes, which is 20% cashback up to 10,000 rupees.
And now we've all heard of cashbacks on purchases of mobile phones, electronic equipments, even cars and bikes. But here's the first. ICICI Bank is providing a cashback scheme on home loans. Yes, home loans. Vishwanath Nair joins us in now for more on this. Vishwanath, we've already seen Axis Bank come out with one called Innovative Loan Repayment Scheme. Now it's ICICI Bank. What is this new scheme all about and why are banks going all out to woo home loan consumers?
Tamanna, what ICICI Bank has launched on today says that you will get a 1% cashback on every EMI that you pay for a 30-year loan, 15 to 30-year loan. This is typically to get more home loan customers come in and start borrowing from the bank. We saw Axis Bank do something similar in August when they said that they will waive off 12 of your EMIs if you have a good repayment record with the bank. Now, it's evident, we saw also Piramal Housing Finance come out with a housing finance venture on Wednesday. It's pretty evident that lenders are trying to tap into the housing loan market when all other growth avenues are at this point in time looking bad. You've got corporate credit growth near zero, overall total credit growth at about 7.5%. So you need that home loan product, something where there is some demand, especially in the affordable housing segment. You need that to come in and start complementing the banks and help them grow their loan books. So it's evident these are all aimed at doing that.
If you really look at this point of time, with PMAY less than 30 lakhs, you have got great subvention coming from government. You take our 1% cashback EMI schemes, which gives you for a 30-year loan, it gives you 10% of principal back to your pocket. If you take the other two schemes, which is 20% cashback up to 10,000 rupees, and if you take the 20% step up, I think it's a fantastic time to really make that decision. And with RERA coming in, where now the confidence is coming back on the Finnish projects, and everybody is running scheme there as well. So I think it's a very good time for home ownership to come in India. Customer segments who would either go for A or B or C, EMI everybody will get, so they can go for B or C. So we said that, might as well, bundle all the three. So there could be a triple happiness, there is no harm in giving triple happiness to customers.
All right, so that's the version of ICICI Bank. Those freebies are here, but how much is it worth? Do you really get a good deal? Is it a good deal? Amit Trivedi is going to be joining us. He's an author and a mutual fund expert. He's a personal finance expert as well. And he's going to be joining us a little later to talk about whether these are a good deal or not. An infrastructure developer, Hindustan Construction Company, has informed stock exchanges that lenders had decided to invoke the strategic debt restructuring scheme for its Lavasa township project. Sajit Manga joins us now with more. Sajit, what are the implications of this move? Will promoters lose control of the Lavasa unit?
Tamanna, it looks like the promoters will lose control of Lavasa Corporation, which is the hill valley which they have been constructing, and that project has been mired with various controversies. They were planning to come out with an IPO, the IPO failed, and then there were multiple regulatory actions that happened. Now today, SEC has informed the Bombay Stock Exchange that the lenders have invoked SGR on Lavasa Corporation and 2 of its subsidiaries. The total debt under question is around 5,100 crores. Under the SDR process, the lenders have to come out with a resolution within 18 months. Within first 6 months, they will try to convert the debt into equity, and they will get a 51% equity in the entire project. Now, remember, HCC holds Lavasa through one of its step-down subsidiary, and it has nearly 69% stake in the company there. So it is very likely that HCC will lose control of Lavasa, and lenders will have 51% stake in this entire real estate project, and they would have to sell nearly 26% of this project going forward. Remember, these two Lavasa Corporation and its 2 subsidiaries are the net worth is almost eroded for them, so it would be a fresh infusion of capital which would be required there, and that's something which we need to watch out for, how much of the capital could be infused in it, because in the last 2 years they had an interest burden of 1,200 crores which came into, and they couldn't service that debt. So it would be an interesting one in the next 6 months how the lenders are going to take this forward.
Thanks for that, Sajid. Now, one of India's largest pharma companies, Lupin, is looking to buy itself out of trouble. The drug maker is scouting for acquisitions in the women's healthcare and pediatric space. In a conversation with Menaka Doshi earlier today, CFO Ramesh Swaminathan says Lupin has the balance sheet strength to borrow up to $1 billion to fund these acquisitions.
We have always professed our interest in women's health as well as the pediatric space. That's because we've got a franchise which has been around for some time. We already have a couple of products in both categories. Superax, of course, was our anchor product in the pediatric space some time ago. It's come down substantially. But having said that, we are looking around for assets in the women's health space, and there are quite a few there in the market. Having said that, the sweet spot for us would be between $150 to $250 million per tranche, and we could do multiple tranches of this.
Per tranche? Explain that to me. Sorry.
So potentially one molecule, we could.
Okay, so you'd be buying products, not the companies themselves.
It could be companies. It could be it could be a product. It could be.
So how much have you put aside, let's say, for M&A? Or how much have you earmarked?
If you look at our balance sheet, I think we've got capacity to borrow about $1 billion more. But that's, so. And
so you started with $150 to $200 million, and you just told us that you have the ability to leverage $1 billion.
We could certainly do that, but having said that, it's not as I'm going to expend that entire amount in one tranche. It's going to be, as I said, across multiple tranches and over time.
Now, days after General Electric raised a red flag over the government's plan to alter contracts signed for establishing a factory in Bihar for diesel locomotives, Railway Minister Piyush Goyal said the government is negotiating ways to tweak the agreement as the nation shifts to less polluting modes of transportation. Allaying concerns that the deal is in jeopardy, he added that the factory work is progressing as per plans and signaled that there's no plan to review the contract. And Apple has written to TRAI seeking to resolve the differences over TRAI's Do Not Disturb or DND app. The telecom regulator has been at loggerheads with Apple for not allowing the DND app to be listed on its app store. The DND app aims to have control over unwanted phone calls and messages. Speaking to the media, TRAI chairman R.S. Sharma has said they're open to resolving the issue with Apple.
Yes, they have written a letter to us saying that they want to, share some of the suggestions which they have, and we have decided that we will certainly discuss with them. So we have probably invited them. The point is that Apple has not given us any commitment as yet, right? We are interested in finding a solution where we are saying that for your own customers, you should enable the API so that they are able to send those, SMSs or those details about those calls which they receive and which they consider to be intrusive or they consider to be pesky.
Right.
Well, all right. Some more news coming in from the Indian Mobile Congress. My colleague Ayush Alavadi is there, and he has been looking at the new Geo TV Cable, telling us how it all works.
Well, it's an interesting technology. It's very simple, actually. It's essentially this USB, which is connected to this box. The box looks exactly like this. when it comes to this particular box, if you just take it out, it's going to become as one unit. So you'll have this box, this tiny little box, which essentially what you do is you put the USB from the Geo phone into this. On the other end, you have a TV out. In this scenario, this is an HDMI out, which I'll be showing it to you later. But it also comes for these old CRT TVs. Remember the ones you used to smack to actually start and the ones you wanted to change channels on? Well, this one is connected with an RCA cable, the yellow, white, and red one. And I'll show you what the content looks like. If you actually simply just pick up a Geo phone, unlock it, right? Keep the star button to unlock it. Press it, long press it, of course. It's unlocked. There's two ways. Either you speak to it. It's a noisy India Mobile Congress, but I'll show you something. What you can do is just hit Geo TV. It loads. And I'm gonna, well, if I'm in the mood to watch a movie and I want to watch it on my Geo phone, running on their Geo network, on this VoLTE 4G network, I can simply click. I just clicked, and voila. Well, Z Cinema is playing out there automatically. Well, it's not just CRTs. We also have this. This happens to be an HD TV. And like I showed you, this particular cable has an HDMI out as well, which is what you have on your Tata Sky HD boxes or on your PlayStation 4s. That's what you use. So you've got to put that cable in. What they will give you is this cable, the USB, and of course it'll be charging, like I told you earlier. That cable aside, just to show you how quick this is, and this is something I wanted to test for myself, where here this phone's running only on Reliance's Geo network, and I click on it, and I want to watch sports. I love sports, right? You know I love football. I click on it, and the channel changes in an instant to HD futsal. I don't know if I like futsal, but I do like football, and I'm watching HD TV in a jiffy.
All right, fashion brands are fast moving online. A day after Zara said it would start online sales soon, Hens and Moritz, or commonly known as H&M, is planning to start online sales in India from next year. H&M India sales more than doubled in the first 9 months of 2017 compared to the same period last year. The fashion retailer, which entered India in 2015, has 17 stores across the country. Spanish apparel maker Zara also plans to start online sales from the 4th of October through its website and app. Now, a day after Yashwant Sinha's strongly worded opinion piece criticizing the government's economic policies, the Modi government fielded its top ministers as a countermeasure. Former Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha has himself also spoken out today, backing his argument that it is the government's mishandling of the economy which has led to a slowdown.
India's economic challenges have father Yashwant Sinha and son Jayant Sinha on opposing sides. A day after Yashwant Sinha's hard-hitting opinion piece titled "I Must Speak Up," which blamed Finance Minister Arun Jaitly for the economic situation in the country, his son Jayant Sinha took on the mantle of defending the union government. Jayant Sinha, who is Minister of State for Civil Aviation, wrote his version of the economic challenges facing the country in a leading publication today. But the debate stirred by former Finance Minister and BJP leader Yashwant Sinha is far from over.
सारी दुनिया इस सच्चाई को स्वीकार करती है कि भारत पूरे वर्ल्ड की एक फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी है और इस सच्चाई को किसी को भूलना नहीं चाहिए.
The whole country and the world has seen that under the decisive leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, India has become the world's fastest growing economy for 3 years in a row. If you see some of the landmark reforms that this government has brought in, they are unprecedented. Something like GST was never imagined to be possible in a country of the size and scale of India.
While a host of union ministers were fielded to defend the government's position, Yashwant Sinha didn't seem impressed.
सरकार के जो दो मंत्री बोले हैं, राजनाथ जी और पीयूष गोयल जी, वो हमसे ज़्यादा अर्थशास्त्र समझते हैं और इसलिए उनको लगता है कि हम न केवल भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था को बल्कि दुनिया की अर्थव्यवस्था के मेरुदंड आज हम बने हुए हैं. मैं हाथ जोड़कर बहुत नम्रता के साथ निवेदन करूंगा कि मैं उस विचार के साथ नहीं हूं.
His views have also been echoed by fellow BJP veteran Shatrughan Sinha.
जब उन्होंने आईना दिखाया है
तो ये बात नहीं भूलनी चाहिए कि ये सच्चाई जो है भले ही कड़वी सच्चाई हो, लेकिन पार्टी के हित में, राष्ट्र के हित में है.
While the government may choose not to take Sinha's critique seriously, there is little doubt that the current economic scenario continues to be a pressure point. Bureau Report, Bloomberg Quint.
And Finance Minister Arun Jaitly hit back at Yashwant Sinha after his accusations of him leaving the economy in a mess. Jaitly said he did not have the luxury of making comments in hindsight.
I do not have the luxury as yet of being a former finance minister. Nor do I have the luxury of being a former finance minister who's turned a columnist. And therefore, I can conveniently forget a policy paralysis. I can conveniently forget the 15% NPAs of 1998-2002. I can conveniently forget the 4 billion reserve left in 1991. And I can switch over and change a narrative. Acting in tandem itself won't change the facts. Probably a more appropriate title for your book would have been India at 70, Modi at 3.5, and a job applicant at 80.
Wow. So yes, Finance Minister Arun Jaitly definitely did hit back at former Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha, who's also from his party. And even as the entire GDP debate turns political as well, we're asking the question that does it really make a difference when it comes to votes? Will it impact the BJP's electoral fortunes in any way? Or is it just a passing storm in a teacup? We're going to talk about that in more detail a little later with Shankar Iyer. He's a political economy analyst and author. A.K. Bhattacharya, editorial director of the Business Standard, will be joining me. I'm also going to be speaking with Barkha Dutt. She's columnist with the Washington Post and editor-founder of Mojo. That's coming up in just a bit from now. But meanwhile, President Donald Trump has proposed his new tax plan. The proposal would reduce the corporate tax rate to 20%, down from the current maximum 35%. It would also lower the tax burden for pass-through entities, including partnerships and limited liability companies. Trump insisted that the new tax system would leave middle-class Americans with more money in their pocket. And US President Donald Trump is also making headlines with his latest attack on Facebook, calling the social media giant biased. In a tweet late last night, Trump wrote that Facebook was always anti-Trump, but that did not stop him from becoming president. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg did not hold back either, defending himself in a Facebook post specifically addressed to President Trump. Zuckerberg said that both sides were upset about the content they don't like, but that's what running a platform for all ideas looks like. Well, saying that, that's what reporting every side of the story also looks like. But moving on, Hugh Hefner, the founder of Playboy magazine, died at the age of 91. Hefner died from natural causes and he was surrounded by friends and family at his home at the Playboy mansion in Los Angeles. According to a post on Playboy's official Twitter feed, Hefner's wish was to be buried in a crypt he bought next to the grave of Marilyn Monroe in Los Angeles.